All right, hey guys, welcome back to the Melanin Margin. I'm your host, Quaviondre Williams.
And I'm Daquon Wilson.
And this is the talk show dedicated to bringing the marginalized to the spotlight and uplift the Black voices that will no longer stay silent. But before we get into this week's conversation, we need to talk about Lil Nas X. Daquon, I have been seeing this trending. The Christians are angry. The Christians
they are mad. Not little mad, big mad.
They are big mad. And the thing that really pisses me off is that nobody seems to understand this is blatant homophobia and racism. Because let's break this shit all the way down. Like, satanic imagery has been used in heavy metal music since, the beginning of it. Ozzy Osbourne, the list goes on. And then the fact that we have a show on Netflix, one of the biggest shows on Netflix is Lucifer, which is literally about Satan being the protagonist. And we're relating to Satan. And Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, where these little white girls are worshiping Satan. So the fact that this Black gay man is doing a video about this and people are hot, Daquon.
Listen, the irony is though, the loudest and most vocal opposition to this video are the same people that say homosexuality is a sin and you're going to hell. And I'm like, he did that in the video, so why are you mad? He's doing what he said. Did.
And that's the thing that really pisses me off. It's like y'all are so people don't understand this is blatant homophobia, blatant racism, because the reality is, if he was white, or the reality is to me, is that what really makes me so upset is that instead of it being seen as edgy and different and something whatever, people are automatically going satanic, Illuminati worship, blah, 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 blah. And it's oftentimes associated when Black people are succeeding. Have you noticed that? Like the Beyoncés, the Jay-Z's, like Rihanna's, like the moment they start getting up there, Illuminati Satan.
Right.
That's the first argument.
Yeah, and it's one of these, it's interesting because I also draw parallels to the Lady Gaga Judas video, which the connection there is so real because both of them were released right before Easter.
Yes.
And all of this relating, and it comes down to, I think a lot of people don't want gay people or, they don't want people to have agency over their own narratives and their own stories. It's like, I have to tell you how you're going to be, how you're going to end up in X, Y, and Z, because I am above you. I am higher than you because I have this connection to this higher power in a specific way. And it's like, that's this narrative of oppression and all of this is just they're just trying to keep the power. They're trying to make sure that people feel beneath them.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I want to say that I'm not saying that the Lady Gagas and the Ozzy Osbournes and the white people aren't bashed for that, whatever. I'm not saying that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that you can see is disproportionately more affecting towards African American artists versus white artists. So the backlash is way worse when it comes to Black artists, especially in this case, a Black gay artist. And it's like you said before, literally the whole song was I'm in love with Judas, the person who literally betrayed Jesus or whatever. And it's just crazy to me that we don't know how deeply rooted religion is in some of our music and some of our TV shows or whatever. And there are plenty of shows out there that, literally supernatural. Two white men, and they make God to be a whole horrible person. And so I'm just, this whole kind of narrative that, he's trying to corrupt the youth. It's kind of bitch, it's not his job to raise your kids.
Y'all have parental controls.
Daquon, the same thing. And once again, always Black people. Look at WAP when it was released and Up. And it's Cardi B, you won't let your child listen to that song. Yeah, because she's a parent. Because she knows that her music is for adults. Just because Lil Tommy and Lil Becky listen to Up and WAP does not mean that Cardi B is responsible for them throwing it back on somebody or having sex. It's kind of baby, that's not her problem.
Right, they did not become artists to raise your kids. They did not like it would be a little bit different if it was like, I don't know, JoJo Siwa coming out of nowhere with something like that. Because
Yeah,
like all of her things are like specifically directed towards
towards
younger
children.
people.
Yeah.
But like even in that situation, like if your art is directed to younger people and then you want to like move on past that, that's also perfectly fine. But it's like at the end of the day, these artists, their responsibility is not to like be like this perfect image, because at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. Nobody's going to be that perfect representation for everybody. So if you have the power to control what devices your child has, control what websites they can go on, control like there's YouTube Kids, there's like all of these different things that you can do to make sure that like your kids aren't seeing things that you deem inappropriate. And
Yeah.
even if they do, then that's your job to have a conversation with them and tell them, hey, this is why it's inappropriate. And so that they can learn instead of being like, oh, my parents tell me I can't watch this, but like I want to watch it anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly it's crazy to me because I remember that Joyner Lucas apparently reached out and was like said something that I love, and he was like, my kids listen to Old Town Road, and this is crazy that he's blah blah blah, and like he was like, in Old Town Road I'm talking about lean and adultery and blah blah blah. He's like, so it's
Right.
not it, and he basically like said what you said, like it's not his responsibility to raise your children. Just because a lot of kids liked Old Town Road does not make Lil Nas X a child rapper. Does that make sense? Like it
Right.
just because a majority of children enjoyed his music, he did not gear his music to children. That was not the original intent. Children liked his music,
Mm-hmm.
but it does not mean that he's responsible for making only child music. And it was crazy to me that Jordan Lucas was like saying that when like you talking about vagina on your songs and all kind of stuff on your songs. So it's kind of like, it's just like, bro, like let's not act like you don't call girls bitches on your songs sometimes. Like let's not act like you just sitting here just on a pedestal of like, I don't ever say anything problematic, or I don't ever do anything that's you know what. So it baffles me that we're still having this conversation that artists are responsible for how people receive their art. I'm a very big proponent about art being transactional. It's like when you create your artwork and someone purchases your artwork, how that artwork affects them does not have any bearings on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
just because I make a song about just because I make a song about fighting or whatever does not mean that if you get in a fight, my song was the reason why you did it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's just like I said, we need to leave artists alone and give them agency over their work. And if you don't want to listen to their work, don't listen to it. If you don't want your kids listening to it, block it. It's just that simple. So moving on to this week's topic, performative blackness. Now, Daquon, in what ways is performative blackness problematic?
Um, in just about every way, to be honest. Like, all right, so like the way I see performative blackness, it's thinking about the ways that people perform blackness. Like a lot of times I see it within the context of like pulling from like stereotypes or
Yeah.
just like creating these images of blackness or what you perceive to be blackness in order to like be entertaining. And it oftentimes leads to a problem because it just reinforces these negative stereotypes and narratives about Black people and make Black people so one-dimensional. Like it's so hard for you to be like, there is a specific way to perform Blackness because everybody has different expressions of their Blackness. So if you're trying to like perform Blackness in a way that you think this is how you perform Blackness, then you are essentially making Blackness a monolith that you can just like put on a costume and be like, I'm Black now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's minstrelsy. It's basically blackface. Because the way that you're doing this is that you are basically saying that these elements of blackness are funny or entertaining. So I'm going to use those elements to create profit. So I have oftentimes seen a lot of white gays specifically pretending that they're Black women when they don't have a personality of their own. They put on the Black girl, oh yes, honey, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like very much so a caricature of a Black woman. You know, taking the things that make her unique and making her into something that's entertainment, as if she's a spectacle. And so you take those elements that make a Black woman individual and make it something make it a general. And you're like, so if I'm going to like, what was that? Shane Dawson, a big blackface artist, and using a minstrelsy of Black women to perpetuate this kind of ghetto girl fantasy and to be like, that's funny, that's hilarious. Look at me as a white man, or look at me as a white person, look at me as a white girl or whatever, pretending to be Black, because that's funny. Looking at the Cash Me Outside girl, Daniela, whatever the fuck her name is. I don't know what her last name, but that particular she's like that whole Cash Me Outside. How about that? Trying to talk a certain way, incorrectly using AAVE to put on an image and a persona of what she thinks is funny and entertaining. And I've seen a lot of, now once again, I do want to be clear, there are definitely white people who are raised in Black communities who do adapt certain talking styles, specifically like Eminem and like people like that, who are raised around Black people or raised around the Black community in some way. And you can always tell when someone has been raised in the Black community and they just speak how they speak, or if they're putting on an act. There's a distinct difference. Do you see that too, Daquon?
Yeah, I think there's you can tell by not only the way that they speak, but also the type of vocabulary that they use. You know, AAVE it's one of those things, like I was talking to my friend who's a linguistics major yesterday, and it's like AAVE is like a language. There's so much to it. And there's certain ways that people speak using AAVE that like people who are not raised around that just don't understand the way to essentially conjugate a sentence. And so it becomes this thing where they just pick up on certain phrases and they'll only use those phrases, but they're not even using them in the same context or in the right context a lot of times. So it's like, oh, I heard this word and it was being used in this way. So I'm just going to use this word in all of these different ways because this is what I think it means. And while that is somewhat of how we acquire language, a lot of it is understanding the different contexts things come out of and the different contexts you can use specific words or specific grammar styles.
Absolutely. And I think that even with people who are raised around Black people, like specifically M&Ms and stuff like that, like certain people like that, just because they're raised around Black people or raised in Black circles does not mean that they are absolved from participating in minstrelsies, like, or blackface, and such as with a performative blackface, basically. So, you know, there are definitely elements to it where it's like, you can, like I said, there's always a subtle thing where I can recognize whether a white girl or a white guy is raised around Black people and has Black friends and knows how to use proper, you know, whatever. But you oftentimes see that sometimes they'll punch it up, and that's where it becomes a minstrel. And oftentimes, Eminem has done this before. People have been guilty of this consistently throughout all of social media and stuff like that. And it's frustrating to me because we'll oftentimes see it done in such a way where it's like, well, I was raised in the Black and I was blah 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 and I was whatever, but it's like you're profiting off of it. You're making it, you're commercializing it. So it's not the same thing. Like, once again, if you're making a joke or a joke that is predominantly used within the Black community and you're using it to boost up your followers or boost up your kind of reputation or whatever, that is you commercializing Blackness. That's you making Blackness a monolith. And like you said before, it's almost using, like I said, it's this generalization of what being Black is. And if you do these elements, if you sag your pants, if you talk a little differently, or you say, man, I know mean man, like whatever, you're automatically now a Black man, or you're invited to the cookout, or you're a Black girl now because you say, catch me outside, how about that? And you hoes want to blah, 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 like all of that extra stuff. And like I said before, you can tell. You can always tell when someone's putting on, and it's the putting on that frustrates me. If that there have been many white people that I have met like I said before, that have been raised in Black communities that just speak a certain way, but it's never it's never in an offensive way, because that's just how they've spoke. That's just how they were raised to speak. But once again, when I always can tell, like I said, when someone is using it as a means to connect to a certain crowd or to connect to a certain demographic, because they think if I speak in this way or if I talk like this, it's going to get these people on my side, quote unquote, and that's where it's become a problem.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because it's one of these things that, like, there's a lot of people that don't have the privilege to, like, turn things on and off.
Yeah.
Like, there are certain people where it's like, that is how they talk, that is how they've been raised.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have that luxury. Or even if we do, we have to turn things on and off in order to just live, survive, get a job, because our natural state of being is considered unprofessional, or all of these different things. And if you are putting on this act of Blackness that's just like, oh, I'm going to do this just to be funny or anything like that, you're making an act of mockery. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these people, they don't necessarily talk about like that to their parents, their grandparents, or anything like that. Like, they don't do this at home. So it's a lot of times you're like, oh, well, like, I was raised around Black people. And it's like, were you really? Like, like, yeah, sure, you might have Black friends and you might like catch on to certain things, but at the end of the day, like, you being able to just like put something on to like make you a profit is always just going to be like, all right, I'm going to make a mockery out of Blackness just so I can get a thing. And that's literal minstrelsy.
That's exactly what that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Daquon. Mockery. That's exactly what it is. Because when you profit off of something that people are oppressed because of, that is a problem. That is in and of itself problematic. Because basically when Kim Kardashian puts in tribal braids, girl, them's cornrows. But because she did it, and because she's like, oh yeah, it's something new that I just do, just because I just figured it out, I just did this because I just did it. You're basically profiting off of something that people have been told, this is ghetto, this is ratchet, this is this and the fourth. It's very seldom that you'll see a white performer who puts on an act of Blackness be called ghetto or ratchet. In the same way that Black women and Black men who might naturally speak in certain ways are called. Does that make sense? Like, it's not the same. It doesn't have the same bite, because at the end of the day, you can always step out of it. As a white person, they always are like, why are you acting like that? That's them. That's the ghetto-ness. You don't have to act like that. And it's almost like this idea of like, just because we as Black people may speak in AAVE, that does not mean that we cannot speak in the English vernacular of the regular respected vernacular in America. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's this idea that when white people do it, it is always a performance. Whereas when Black people do it, it's simply who they are, and they can't be anything else, and it's always ghetto. You see what I'm saying? Whereas it is not just an expression of who they are, an expression of how they were raised or their culture. So I want to pose this question to you, Daquon. Do you think that Blackness is in style or in vogue?
I think we always go through different trends of like Blackness being in vogue. It's always one of these things that's like, oh, here's this Black dance. White people get a hold of it. It's like, all right, now, oh, this is just like this trend. And it's like, y'all weren't messing with it. And even then, even when you start doing Black trends, you gentrify it so much that it can't even hold water to the original. So it's one of these things, like, I think about, I forgot who, but somebody went on like some talk show. It was some TikTok star, and they were like doing dance trends. And it was like all of these dance trends that they were doing was created by Black people. And you can tell the difference between like this white person doing it and like the original Black creators. So I think especially in the time of just like technology and meme culture and everything like that. People love to use Blackness as a way of expression. People love to use Blackness as a way of being like, hey, this is cool, this is funny, and it's honestly kind of disgusting.
It is. I think that, and what I really hate is when you see these white creators who are getting called out on it defend themselves by saying it's just American, it's just TikTok, it's just this, it's just that. And it's like you're basically assimilating this aspect of Black culture into American culture when it's not. It is Black culture, and because you're trying to assimilate this way of talking or assimilate this way of dancing or this way of whatever as, oh, it's just American culture. It just, everybody does it. Everybody does it. Everybody says this, so it's not, it doesn't belong to Black people. It's like, no, it is Black culture. No, it is Latinx culture. No, this is Asian culture. You know what I'm saying? Like understanding that even though it is a part of American culture, there are segments of it. It's broken down. So it's not just, this is just American culture, so it doesn't have any history. It's like, no, yes, is Black culture and Asian culture and Latinx culture integrated into the American culture? In some ways, of course it is, because we all are Americans, but it does, people in America, all Americans, but it doesn't negate the fact that American culture has, the erasure. It's the erasure. So it's like, just because it is a part of American culture does not mean that it did not have its roots in Black culture. You see what I'm saying? Or Asian culture, or Latinx culture, or so on and so forth. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're totally making sense. And I think it's one of these things that, you know, every time I see that, I'm just like, why is it these people that like really be out here performing Blackness be the most anti-Black? Like, you out here trying to do everything and anything that you think is Black except for actually being Black. And and it's one of these things that it's so ironic and it's so like terrible, because you're actively showing that, hey, I only see Blackness as a form of entertainment. And if you want me to see Blackness in a whole spectrum in as a humanity, like, I don't want to see that. And that's like what it's telling me as a Black person. But have you ever noticed that?
Absolutely. Let's talk about Miley Cyrus. Let's discuss Miley Cyrus. Now, I want to be clear. I am a big proponent, like I just said, we started this podcast talking about Lil Nas X. I'm a big proponent in expression and expressing yourself in whatever way you choose to do so. However, what frustrates me the most is how white people, specifically celebrities, are able to step in and out of Blackness when it's convenient for them. And like I said before, there is a humongous difference between an artist who was raised influenced by Black culture and an artist who picks and chooses elements of Black culture to incorporate in a style. Specifically, we're talking about Miley Cyrus in the We Can't Stop days, where she was twerking and wearing her hair and I think it was Bantu knots, wasn't it?
I think
Or
so.
was it the two, or was it just the two things?
It might have been something like that.
Regardless,
Regardless.
you're twerking, you're now she's rapping now, and she's I'm a thug wearing grills, all this other stuff. And just like, it was very much so opportunistic. And the reason I say this is because it wasn't as if she'd always wanted to do that, and that is still her style today. If that had been who she always was, I would not have had a big problem with it. It was the fact that when she released her most recent album and she let her hair grow back out, and now she's singing the old Southern country music, and she's kind of like pulling away. Now she's kind of a little bit more demure now. And it's like, so it was a fad. So it was just you just stepping in to have a little bit of fun, and you're like, and now you're just And I mean, I'm not saying that she's not still in those, there are not elements of that still in her personality now, but what I am saying is that there is a very distinct, harsh difference between We Can't Stop Miley and mother-daughter Miley now. And you can really see it. Even, let's go back. Hannah Montana, We Can't Stop, and now. These are two, if you look at the Hannah Montana Miley and the daughter, mother-daughter, the new song, the new album she just got out, those two are a little bit more near each other than this weird moment in between with this We Can't Stop. And it really frustrated me because, like I said before, it was like you were performing blackness because it was, once again, that was back when Nicki Minaj was like at the top of her game, and like, rapping was really like, Future was really popping, like stuff like that. Like, so it was a lot of that going on. And it was like really like, very, very heavy black, right now at that particular time. And so it was very much so, are you seeing what I'm saying, Daquon? Am I on Lily Island here? Am I fat lighted? Okay, that's about the drag queen code right there.
Yeah, I see. We hear.
We hear with it.
And I just I would want to add that beyond just it being a fad, I think the most disgusting part of it is that it was used specifically to break an image. It was oh, I don't want to be this childhood goody two shoes anymore, so I'm going to adopt these aspects of black culture to make me seem edgy, to make me get rid of this image so that people don't see me as being pure. And that you're literally perpetuating this notion that the antithesis to pureness, that the antithesis to whiteness is blackness. And that's how it's so problematic.
Oh, Daquon, say it again for the people in the back, Daquon.
See, so let me break it down. Here's the equation. When you use blackness as a way to take down this image, this childhood star image, this image of purity, you are making it and you are perpetuating this narrative and this image that blackness is the antithesis to pureness and whiteness.
Let's let that pause. Let's pause on that real quick, just for a quick second. I want y'all to take this in. I want you to take this in. This idea that blackness or stepping into it is an act of rebellion is incredibly problematic, because she could have done the exact same thing without doing that, without doing what she did. Specifically, I want to take, I would say a good example of this would have to be Ariana Grande. I'd have to give her that. And there are elements of her doing some of that too, but I will say that towards the middle of her career, before she became Ariana Grande, the one, there was a period of time where she was singing a little bit more, different kinds of music. It was slowly branching to more sexual and more different, specifically Dangerous Woman. And now, now she's more of kind of adjusted her brand. It's still kind of cutesy to an extent, but it's not as innocent as it used to be. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think, once again, there are elements to Ariana Grande that can be seen as also, that and problematic in some ways, of borrowing from blackness. Huh?
The blackfishing.
I mean, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But as far as her brand goes, I was talking with somebody about it, and I was kind of actually speaking, when we see her brand growth, we saw the shift, and we saw her shift from being the innocent, sweet Nickelodeon star to being a fully fledged pop artist. And I was like, the problem with Miley Cyrus for me was the fact that you could have done the breaking away from the Hannah Montana image completely differently. You still could have done We Can't Stop. You still could have done these other songs, but the fact that you were stepping into this, I'm a bad girl now because I'm acting black, that is what was the problem. You could have still done the same music and the same shift without having to pretend to be black, if that makes any sense.
Exactly. And it does this thing to where now the media is picking up on it because a white person's doing it, and they speak specifically that you're doing it to be rebellious, you're doing it to have this negative image, you want to look edgy, and then they're just going to perpetuate this notion of oh, this is ghetto, this is not becoming of a woman, this is all of these different things that are negative. And now it's the people who are just that the people who are literally just like to twerk or anything like that, then it's like, oh, let's connect all of this back to Miley Cyrus and like the negative things that we had to say about her. And it's like, where do you get off on like doing that? Because you're literally being able to do something where you can step into blackness for a second, get what you need to get your life, have some fun, and then you leave. And it's like, you're not understanding the ramifications of like what you did and how you left your mark.
And that's the crazy. And I think that what really pissed me off was that the people who did support her are the same people who would not support Black artists doing the same thing. It was the hypocrisy for me. It's like, so we're gonna she's a brave. A lot of people call her, oh, she was brave for breaking that Disney image, and I'm like, and she's, what is it called, embracing her sexuality or whatever. And I'm kind of like, all those things could have been done without basically performing being Black. Like all of that could have been done without you having to twerk and throw it back and lick on things and pretend to fuck. Like all of that was just, it could have been done differently.
Right. And y'all have a problem. Y'all thought Miley Cyrus was brave, but y'all have a problem with Chloe and Halle? Like, what?
Ciao. That's a whole nother conversation. That is a whole nother conversation. But it's crazy because it's just like you said before, using Blackness as a way to rebel against what society, quote unquote, wants from you, because that is what society deems as problematic. Blackness is problematic in society. So to align with any of those things, to take any of those traits, is to no longer be considered, like you said before, innocent. It's to break away innocence, because apparently Black can't be innocent too.
Apparently not. And I think it becomes one of these things where then you have people just like getting into this mindset that like, since Blackness cannot be innocent, we can't see Black people as innocent. And that has so many ramifications, especially when you get to like the prison industrial complex and everything like that. And I want to emphasize this point because, so many times we see people, it's like, oh, it's just like a musician doing things. Oh, it's just, people on TikTok. And it's like, yeah, sure. At this moment, it can be, somebody on TikTok. But that does not affect that, like, these are images of the media that we're getting seen and perpetuated time and time again. And it's these images that causes, police officers to see Black men as monsters that should be killed. And they feel that they're threatening their lives. And like, as everything that's happening now with like the George Floyd trial and everything, like, it's important to remember that like, even these things that we see as just like small, misrepresentations of Blackness can have the biggest impacts.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I think that when we turn Blackness, like you said, into a monolith, when we turn Blackness into a quality or a trait or a personality, we're basically saying that this is entertainment and this is what it is. It's a caricature, a very stereotypical caricature, a negative caricature that is basically being perpetuated over and over again, that consistently perpetuates this image that Black people are not smart, that Black people are ratchet and ghetto, and Black people are not as are only good for being entertaining. That Black people can be a representation of my feelings now, because that's the only way that Black people, using Black people as expressions. Like, why do you think that digital blackface is such a problem in meme culture, Daquon?
Ooh, it's such a problem because people are so quick to weaponize it and so quick to just like, take things so out of context. Like, I think, one of the biggest things that I've been seeing now is people, using like Megan Thee Stallion crying at the Grammys, and people will use that sound on TikTok for like, oh, my delivery for Uber Eats just got delayed. Like, and they're using this sound. And I'm like, do you not know, like, A, the history and the barriers that Megan Thee Stallion is breaking? B, that she's also mourning the loss of her mother. And you're using these ways of just like, oh, Black people and their expressions are just funny and that's it. and like Black people can't actually have true expressions. And so then when we actually get mad or we try to do things, and it's like, oh, you're just overreacting. And that's because people see Blackness as just a reaction. People see Blackness as just some way to like express themselves. And you even see this in like reaction gifs and like people being like, oh, let me take this funny like clip from Real Housewives of Atlanta of like Nene doing something and being like, oh, haha, like here's a gif, oh, shade and everything like that. And it's like, hey, like where are you getting this context from? And B, it's like you are only like using that as a way of just like creating that kind of spectacle again, creating that show. And it's one of those things that like I've read a lot of people, noticing how like you see people using Black reaction gifs way more than any white. Like you'll see more from like Real Housewives of Atlanta or like Basketball Wives or something like that than like Schitt's Creek or, really, really white shows. And if it's, you are making a mockery of Blackness in this way again.
Absolutely. I think that it's breaking it down to entertainment. I think the biggest problem I have with it is that it's incorrectly used. Like this, like that's the thing. And I think that's the problem that I have mostly with, like, once again, we know that everybody uses memes and everybody likes, the GIFs and stuff like that. But I think that it's the problem is that if you don't understand what the GIF is saying, and you don't understand where it comes from, you're not, and you're using it incorrectly, you are essentially participating in minstrelsy, because you're like, I think you don't fully understand what it means, but you're like, oh, this expression looks funny.
Right.
This word or phrase looks funny, so I think it works for this. Like people who not, especially people who are like, when they go, I call shade, or I would buy like, or this is shade, or you being shady. It's kind of like, and not knowing what it actually being shady is, or not knowing what actually throwing shade was, or not knowing what saying period means. You know what I'm saying? When you say that, what is it? How does it accentuate the sentence? You know what I mean? Or how does it accentuate whatever conversation or topic you're saying? So like, I think it's the lack of understanding. It's the lack of, it's the fact that people are using, and oftentimes, like you said before, in that particular situation, using Black suffering or Black pain as a way to make jokes. Do you remember this meme a while back? I think it's still popular. The meme with the Black girl going like this, and she's like crying, and the girl and the lady just sitting down, and she's looking at her or whatever. You do know that the girl in that meme was actually like minutes away from, like, I'm not minutes, but like she said she was like ready to kill herself. Like when she, she was like, she's screaming, she's like, I'm still sad. That girl, she said she was ready to kill herself. And her entire video became a meme for everything. It was just like, oh, like you said before, my Uber delivery is not here. Nope, still sad, or blah blah. And it was basically making a mockery of this Black woman's pain. And it was crazy. It was insane how people like, and like I said, I watched, and once again, we only get clips and snippets of stuff. So when I actually saw like either accidentally became a meme thing, and I was like, oh my God. And she explained, like, I was going through depression. I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to blah, blah. And I was like Pikachu face. I was just like, because even me, I didn't even realize that was, again, capitalizing on a Black woman's pain.
Exactly. I think like I had this, recollection too. It's one of these things that like, I feel like a lot of times we're not, conscious of like certain things or certain backgrounds behind what's happening and what we're promoting, or even just like the ways in which like we use Blackness to kind of represent idiocy in a way, or just like people not being able to like have the knowledge or have the full articulation to get like what they're trying to get across. So I think a lot about like, Sweet Brown, and it's like ain't nobody got time for that, or like the one meme that was just like somebody talking about how they're waiting for the bus and it takes a long periodically time, and it's like, oh, periodically, haha, they can't say the word. And it's like, I'm not saying like I've never saw that and laughed, like I did, but if we think about it, we're just perpetuating these systems. These are Black people that wanted to get their voices heard. get their voices heard on things that affected them in their lives, and we are taking that and just making a mockery of it.
Yeah, I think that it's crazy because, like I said, the reason why I was so surprised because I thought that was funny. I thought the memes that I was so, oh, this is so hilarious. Like, I wonder what this is from. And then seeing the backstory and realizing that this woman was going through it, and like we basically, as a society, made her out to be, because of white supremacy, made her out to be a joke, a laughing stock, a mockery. And the same goes for women. You remember Megan Thee Stallion's foot got the guy shot her foot, and all the people making like memes and jokes about it. I was like, are y'all for real right now?
Like, somebody just got shot.
Like,
just got shot.
And it's the whole fact of like not trying to protect Black women, not trying to understand that the Black struggle, and not understanding that this is how this is minstrelsy today. This is modern minstrelsy.
Swift, it would have been a different story. If it was Taylor Swift, it would have been a completely different story.
Completely different. The conversation surrounding it. And the scariest part, Daquon, is that a lot of those memes and jokes and stuff were coming from inside the house. The call was coming from inside the house. There were Black people making these memes, making these jokes, basically saying that this Black woman's struggle and pain and this suffering was funny. It was a joke.
Right.
Because we take on the traits of the oppressor as Black people, as people of color.
Yeah, and I think that gets to this point that, like, just because we're Black does not mean we can't perform some type of performative Blackness or perpetuate negative stereotypes about Blackness. Like, I think we see this so many times, especially of like the intersectionality of Blackness and womanness, of like, you'll have all of these Black male creators, whether it's like Vine or YouTube or, all of these Black male comedy figures that are always making like this mockery of like a ghetto Black woman to just be funny. And there are things that are also perpetuating these narratives. Just because you're Black does not mean it's doing anything less than.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, Medea. Like, Medea is fully that. It's a Black man making a mockery of Black women or of older Black women and saying that this is like, and once again, and unfortunately, once again, I want to be very clear. We're not on here acting as if we have not participated in this. Right. We're not acting like that. We're just We're just letting you know that these things are problematic, and we know because we participated as well. And like I said before, when it comes to Medea, I have enjoyed me a Medea movie and a Medea play. I thought it was hilarious. But again, I also recognize the problematic nature of that, because when you look back at Medea and the culture that it perpetuates, that Medea is a violent criminal, and that the police are always after her, and that she's always violent towards the police, so their violence back is justified. That Medea always carries a gun, basically stating that Black women or Black men always have weapons, they're always armed. And the fact that she's always ready to shoot people at a moment's notice, perpetuating this violence. Again, I am saying that I laughed at these things too. I thought these things were funny. But looking back on them as an adult and looking back with more education, not saying that I don't still enjoy a Medea movie every now and then, but it's also recognizing the problems that it perpetuates. Am I making sense here, Daquon?
Yeah, I think that like the main thing is like, I'm not saying you can't enjoy something that you find funny, but you always have to be critical of like, what is it that's the punchline? If the punchline is just being Black, that's not a punchline, not at all. And I think it's one of these things that, especially when we see it from non-Black creators, they have the privilege of kind of performing it without having to be conscious of the ramifications. Like, anytime I speak a certain way, I have to think about how somebody's going to perceive me. I have to do all of that critical thinking just so I know how I'm presenting to the world. But a lot of people who are not Black do not have to do it the same or in the same ways, especially and specifically white people.
Absolutely. I think that, and like you said, but harkening back to your question, like, Black people do participate in those things. When we see Medea movies and we see Tyler Perry doing these things, is perpetuating the idea that Blackness is a performance. Now, I'm not saying that these stories are not valid. These stories did not, are not, telling, I'm not saying that, he is completely wrong. But what I am saying is that we have to recognize where, like you said before, what is the punchline? What is funny? Or are we also, it's also the joke of like, it's also transphobic? Because are we saying that, oh, you know what I mean? Like black, oh, it's because it's a man in a dress. It's a man in a dress. It's not really a woman. That's a lot of the joke about Medea, was that Medea had a penis, that Medea was a man, that Medea was a this and the fourth. Transphobia. Like looking at Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and looking at the fact that in the movie, the antagonist is a trans woman, and the embarrassment that Jim Carrey's character put her through, the washing out his mouth, and then the fact that he pulled down this woman's pants and showed her penis, and then everybody in the room vomited. Daquon vomited. Ooh. The problematic. So it's like, I think it's about educating ourselves on those problematic aspects of it. That as Black people, we have taken on the traits of the oppressor. We understand that these things we understand that unfortunately certain aspects of Blackness are funnier than are entertaining, or are things that can make us money. And like I said before, Tyler Perry is a Black man making money, or having made money off of pretending to be a Black woman.
Right. And I also want to add that like a lot of this Black performativity isn't just like active. A lot of it can be passive. Like I think specifically in like this era of stan culture, like people hide behind others' performances of Blackness. So I think a lot about people that will have like Nicki Minaj meme as their like profile picture or something like that, and they'll say like all of these different things just like as a stan of that person, and it's like, oh well, like I'm just a Nicki fan, like, and she says this and that, and so I'm going to say this and that, and like it's just fine. And it's like you're not realizing how you're not only taking it out of context, but you're also, inserting yourself into something that you're not, and you're doing this thing of blackfishing. Like there's so many different like meme accounts that would like have like some profile picture of a Black woman a lot of times, and they'll like post memes and it'll be like, oh, memes for Black women, and it's like then you see who's actually behind the account and it's not a Black woman, and you're like, what are you getting at here? Like, what are you like, where do you see the punchline versus where do we see the punchline? And even just like in the beauty industry, and blackfishing is such a big thing in the beauty industry. Like, especially if you think about like people like Nikita Dragon, where they take pictures of her and they're like, she can make a whole contour palette based off of every shade that we've seen her in. Or you see comparisons of Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj in the side-to-side music video, where next to each other, they literally look maybe 1 to 2 shades away from each other. And it's one of these things that like, we're not saying that like, oh, somebody can't have a tan, but a natural tan isn't 10 shades darker. A natural tan isn't 5 shades darker. That tan, 1, 2, maybe 3 shades.
I fully agree. I think and that's what I was getting back to what we were talking about earlier about Ariana Grande. Like, in those aspects of it, it kind of sometimes is like trying to make her more ethnically, or what is it called, culturally ambiguous.
Yeah.
And it's like she's slowly getting tanner and tanner, and I'm like,
I'm not gonna lie. When I first heard of like Ariana Grande, I fully thought she was Latino. I fully thought she was a Latina. And I was like, she's Italian?
Yes. I thought the same thing. And especially because as we saw her, she got tanner and tanner and tanner and tanner. And I'm like, girl, what? Like, ma'am, Ma'am, wait a minute now. And like you said before, the fact that they probably, what I'm thinking they did was they lightened up Nicki and made they lightened up her foundation, probably, most likely, and they probably darkened Ariana's foundation so that they would match. And the reality is, in that way, subconsciously, we're saying that these two women are the same, subconsciously. And so we're basically making it out. We're also aligning this idea that maybe maybe Ariana Grande got a little black in her. Maybe she ain't fully white. Maybe she ain't fully, whatever. And it's like this idea that you can become black when you choose it. What I do appreciate. Do you know Queen Herbie?
I've heard the name before.
The reason I really enjoy this particular, she's one of my favorite rappers. I really enjoy her. She's a white woman. And if you look at her profile, she does do rap and she does have black creators come on and like help her out and stuff like that or whatever. But like she's still a white woman. And she's very clear, like, I'm white. Like, I am white and I am very influenced by black culture. And I love black culture. And I try my best to uplift black creators when I can. So like a lot of her videos will have black people in it. A lot of some of her songs have had black artists featuring on it. And she makes it very clear to say, like, I'm a white woman. Like, I'm not black. I don't think I'm black. I don't think I have the audacity. And she's a big proponent from, as far as we know, she's a big proponent for Black Lives Matter and recognizing her privilege as a white woman. And she makes it very clear to say, like, yes, I am influenced by black culture. I appreciate black culture. And she was always a part of it. She's not a part of it, but she was always influenced by it even before she stepped fully into her rapping phase. Like when she did a video a while before she became Queen Herbie. She was Carmen, and she did this rap verse of I think it was Busta Rhymes, Busta Rhyme or whatever. Mm-hmm. And she did that thing. So it was even before that. She's always been interested in rap, but she never thought that she could, and then she did. So, but I thought what was really respectful about it was the fact that she was very clear, like, this has always been something I wanted to do, and you can see the history of it. Whereas with people like Miley Cyrus, you're like, okay, you suddenly shift from singing about this to now you're saying about this. Is kind of like, and then you're performing this way, and it's kind of like when I look at Queen Herbie's style, I don't see her trying to act black. I see her just rapping and just doing what she does. So back to what you were saying, harkening back to what you brought up, this idea that you can use the face or use the image of a black person as a means to perpetuate racism, because a lot of times what we'll see is that these white fan accounts will be like, oh, Nicki is better than Cardi and blah, 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 and whatever. You're kind of like, you're pitting two black women against each other. That's racist and sexist.
Right.
Two birds with one stone. You know what I mean?
Have two women in rap?
And that right there is a whole other conversation right there. The fact that we always pit black artists against other black artists, specifically black female artists, Whitney versus Mariah, Nicki versus Cardi, Nicki versus Remy, and it's just like the whole thing. It's like, why the fuck? Why can't we just have bad bitches be bad bitches? Why can't we have boss women being boss women? Do you see what I'm saying? It's mind-boggling just how deeply rooted white supremacy is within the American culture, and how much it has affected people to make them think that even those who think they are supporting blackness are actually perpetuating digital blackface, are actually perpetuating racism in a completely different way. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think this gets back to the point that, these white people that run these fan accounts, they don't have to think about that. They don't have to think about how blackness is being performed and how it's being represented, because they're not black. They can literally turn off their screen and be like, all right, this is not me anymore. Like, I don't have to deal with any of the repercussions of what I just did, or these images or these stereotypes that I am perpetuating, because they can just like step out of it and be like, all right, I'm done for the day. I had my 2 hours as a black person. I'm good.
Not 2 hours, Daquon. But like, literally, I fully agree. I think that it's just, there's this line that you really have to walk as a white person in the Black community or a white person who is influenced by Black culture. There's a fine line you have to walk between appropriating and appreciating. And appreciating from a distance, bringing that back. And the reality is, I think that a lot of it comes from understanding that, hey, this is where I get this from. This is where it comes from. Like, I think that the reason why Daniela Bregoli or whatever, what is this bitch? I call her the bag baby, the catch me outside, or whatever her name is. Whatever her name is, that girl, the problem that I have with it is the fact that you're not recognizing that you are borrowing, that you are, stealing and appropriating. And you're not saying that, hey, this is where I get this from. This is where I'm influenced by, which is why I respect Queen Herbie as an artist, because she makes it very clear, I'm a white woman and I am heavily influenced by Black culture because that's where rap comes from. So I know it's the respecting the roots for me.
Respect the roots.
You know, and
respect the
roots. And it's like, I think it's all about just recognizing where this comes from, recognizing what you're borrowing, recognizing what you're adapting, recognizing what you are using or what you're utilizing. And I think that is where that line is. And I think that's where a lot of the problem comes from, is that nobody wants to say, I got this from Black women. Nobody wants to say that my AAVE is influenced from Black, it came directly from Black culture, that nobody wants to say that this is funny because of blank, and you see what I'm saying? Nobody wants to give reverence and pay respects to where you got things from. Had Kim Kardashian said, these are cornrows, this is not something I just do randomly. This is something that is a big part of Black culture. As a white person, it is your job to recognize that as you create, baby, you're not a victim when it comes to cultural appropriation. You're not a victim. You're not a victim. So it is your job as a white person to recognize, all right, let me see where blank comes from. And if you are checked on your problematic behavior, to recognize that, yes, I was performing Blackness and I did not know, and I do apologize. The same thing with Miley Cyrus. If she said, listen, y'all, at that point in my life, I didn't fully understand who I was. And I used Blackness as a way to kind of whatever, and said, I do apologize for that because that was not respectful. That was me perpetuating, whatever. I think that I think that respect her a lot more. But because it was just kind of like, we're going to pretend like that didn't happen. We're gonna erase it. You know, that's the problem. Like, do you see what I'm saying, Daquon?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm about to shake the table on something. I think that a lot of this, like, the problem comes from white people don't have a culture. Like, there is no white culture. And that's why people want to, like, bring Blackness and other people's culture into American culture, because there is no white culture. There's Irish culture, there's Scottish culture, there's French culture, there's Spanish culture, there's all of these different European countries where we would consider somebody to be a white person. They have different cultures based on that country and the groups of people within that country. But whiteness, as we have it in our society today, was specifically created to be in opposition to Blackness. Whiteness, as we see it today, was created in order to oppress Black people. So yes, people who are white, can have some type of familial culture because of their Scottish heritage or their German heritage or whatever. But there is no just one white culture. So when they see Black culture, they're like, oh, well, like, you're in America, so like, and I'm in America, we're right here next to each other. So like, it's our culture.
I have never agreed so fully with something in my entire life. I have been saying this for so long. Like, baby, being white is not a culture. It's not. There is no thing. It's not a culture. And you're saying, I don't understand why I can't celebrate being white. I'm proud of being white. Bitch, that's called white supremacy. That's called the Ku Klux Klan. That's what that's called. You know, that's nationalism. Okay, that's what that's called. And I think it's frustrating to me, specifically when white people are so defensive, like, well, blonde hair, that's my culture. Straight hair, that's my culture. Bitch, no, it's not.
Black people can have blonde hair.
Black people can have straight hair. Yeah, like, you know, it's crazy to me how defensive white. Oh, I'm proud. I'm celebrating my whiteness, baby. That's racism. Baby, that's supremacy. White is not a culture. White is not a personality. You know what I mean? Like it's a race. It is something that is created as first of all a social construct. Number one, race, gender, right. A lot of things. So like it's just crazy to me how so many white people, so many white creators, so many people think that they are just like, oh, wow, this is a part of the whole the diaspora. This is part of the whole thing. It's like, no, baby, that's not. It's not. It's not. And I think that I really want to touch base on this too, because we talked about Lil Nas X earlier in this podcast. But I wanted to say that, you remember that? Did you hear about that Dr. Seuss thing?
Yeah.
Where like his books were getting like stop production because of the racist imagery in it. And like honestly, for me, I was like, why are we stopping production? Why are we going to pretend like that didn't exist? Why are we going to pretend like we're going to protect this white man's image? Because that's it. That's what it feels like to me, is because we're not recognizing that in these stories that he had, the 6 stories that I believe it was 6 of them that were banned or stopped production because of the racist imagery in it, he was performing a culture, performing a specific culture to make it funny, to make it something that could be laughed at, to be comical, to be entertaining. And I'm like, don't act like that shit didn't happen.
Right.
Baby, don't pretend like that. I don't like the fact that what made me upset about it was the fact that it was like, we're gonna stop those books because we don't want people to see this. And it's kind of like, he stood in that shit when he made it. Whoever the fuck published it, okayed it. So let that shit be out there to recognize exactly who the fuck he was. You see what I'm saying? Now, once again, we all make mistakes. I'm not saying that everybody's a perfect person. We should be perfect people. But what I am saying is that acting as if the problematic stuff that you have done just didn't happen, that is even more problematic. Am I making sense, Daquon?
Yeah, I think erasure it's problematic. Like if it was one of those things that's like, we're not going to do this because we don't want the state to profit off of racist imagery, that's different.
Yeah,
like, or it's one of these things that like, I saw a lot of like the context of like people, telling people, hey, like I'm not going to read Dr. Seuss on Dr. Seuss's birthday, and like I'm not going to show my students Dr. Seuss for Dr. Seuss's birthday or anything like that, because like we recognize that this man is a racist. And at the end of the day, like people were getting mad because it's like, oh, Dr. Seuss was my childhood and everything like that. And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. Dr. Seuss was not the only author. There are so many people that write children's books that are writing it from a diverse perspective, that are writing about Black issues, that are writing about queer issues, that are writing about issues that people of color face. In a children's book, there are people doing what Dr. Seuss, like whatever his other books that weren't racist were. So it's like, you don't need Dr. Seuss.
I think for me, it's just what, like I said before, the thing that really made me upset about it is because it almost feels like we want to protect this white man.
Right.
If that makes any sense, like it almost feels as if we're going to hide these, like it's under the rug. We're gonna sweep it under the rug because Dr. Seuss is such an icon and such a whatever. We don't want people to remember. Like it's like the idea of like we're gonna stop production because we don't want anybody to see it anymore. We don't want anybody, and I fully understand what you're saying about the idea of like we don't want people to profit off of racism. We don't want people to profit off of racist imagery. But the reality is, it happened. Yeah. And I think that instead of trying to stop it, I think that we should redirect it. So like, if we know that this book has racist imagery in it, or it was whatever, the profits or proceeds should go to an organization that they were making fun of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think I still disagree because I'm like, part of showing and perpetuating racist imagery is you're normalizing it. I'm not saying like get rid of it or whatever. Like, we can still say, hey, there was very racist imagery in something without having to like continually, I don't know, perpetuate it. I don't
Now,
know if
I'm
I'm
not
making
saying
sense.
that they should like read the books and like show it and whatever. My thing is, it felt as if they were trying to, like I said, cover it up, as
Yeah.
if it didn't happen. That was my problem with it. Now, I'm not saying that you should I'm not saying that they should have it, oh, let's do a story time about this, the race imagery. I'm not saying that. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that I think that there needs to be discussion had about it. I think there's immediately a discussion had about why these images were racist, because a lot of the conversations we're banning it because of racist, but we're not really going to tell you what elements. Like, I was Googling, I was like, okay, so where is the racism? Like, what aspect, what pages, like, where was this imagery of it? And like, it was basically, you couldn't find it. It was kind of like they were talking about it, but you couldn't see it. And I was like, the idea, like the same thing about slavery and stuff like that. Like, we see the images of people getting whipped and people getting hung. And these are horrible, disgusting images, but these things happened. These are that little, especially the one thing that comes to mind right now is that image of the white girl smiling as the black man is being hung. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying the photographer should profit off of it, but I'm saying that we should definitely recognize that this happened. Recognize that Dr. Seuss created these things, and recognizing that when we speak about him, we can't just pretend like that shit didn't happen. And that makes sense. So I guess I didn't really kind of get communicated the right way when I was saying it, but that's what I mean, is that I feel like, yes, I agree of the stopping production. And yes, I agree with, like you said before, not further putting more money in the pockets for racist imagery. I fully agree with that part. But I definitely do believe that every year on Dr. Seuss's birthday, or every year on whatever, we don't forget that this is what he did. The same thing with Michael Jackson. Yes, people do enjoy Michael Jackson's music, but we do not forget that he was a pedophile. Just like we do enjoy some of R. Kelly's music, but we do not forget that he was a predator. Just like we can still watch Bill Cosby's show and realize and still understand that Bill Cosby was a predator and was a rapist. You see what I'm saying? So like that's what I'm saying in that way, is that like the same books like To Kill a Mockingbird, specifically, was like, it's still a book that we have, and it was written by a white person.
I didn't read it. I didn't read it.
I know. And nigga is in every fucking, almost every page. And once again, people tried to ban that book, but it's like, it's being taught in schools, it's being whatever, because the reality is, in that time, that was not a problem. You see what I'm saying? So I think for me, it's more of like, I'm more about making sure that we don't forget the conversation. I think that's what I really want to say, is that like, I want to make sure to fully remember that when we talk about Dr. Seuss, do not pretend as if those books didn't exist. Do not pretend that he did not have a problematic past. Do not pretend that the publishing companies who published those books also participated in that racism. Because I don't think we even really know who the publishers were for those books. Like, it's not talked about.
Right.
But like, I feel like understanding, are there other books in those publishing companies that have also containing that racist imagery? You see what I'm saying? So I think that my biggest concern about the whole situation was like making sure that we do not forget to have these conversations, and make sure that we do not forget to hold people accountable, because you can still like Dr. Seuss. The Grinch Stole Christmas is my shit. That's my shit. Every Christmas, it's my shit. I watch Jim Carrey on that motherfucking TV screen. Okay, it's the tradition. But I still, once again, now that I watch it now, I still have in the back of my mind, Dr. Seuss did have racist imagery in his books. Dr. Seuss did perpetuate racism. to Asian Americans and to other people in those books. So you see what I'm saying? Did I kind of clear that up a little bit?
Yeah. It goes back to our conversation beforehand in terms of like saying like, oh, you can't ever enjoy anything at all. It's like you can enjoy it, just be critical of like what is happening in it. Be critical of like if is the Grinch a racist imagery? Like
Yeah.
I haven't paid close attention to the Grinch to say anything about that. But like, yeah, like we said before, feel free to enjoy things, but also be critical of like what you're enjoying and like what are the aspects that you are enjoying it for.
And I think that even when we watch things like The Grinch Stole Christmas, I think that now that we know that Dr. Seuss did participate in those things and had race imagery in his books, we can probably now look at these movies with a closer eye, if that makes any sense. Because now that our eyes have been opened, the blinders have been opened up to what he has done, we can see, are there other things that we probably may have excused, that we may not have fully noticed the first time around because we just thought, oh, they just look a certain way kind of thing. So it's also understanding that kind of aspect too. I think it's always being educated. And I think that harkens back to performative blackness in the sense that you need to understand why these things are funny. You need to understand what the problematic aspects of what you're doing to the Black community. You need to understand that when you do certain things, like you said before, you're pretending that Blackness is an act of rebellion. To pretend to be Black is funny. To pretend to be Black is entertaining. And that is where the problem is. You can be influenced by Black culture, but you cannot appropriate Black culture. And there's a distinct line that we all can see.
And that's on period.
And that's on a period public example. So many little boys and girls grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for that to change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. Now, in an article, Little Known Black History Facts, written by PBS, we learned that Esther Jones was the real Betty Boop. Now, the iconic cartoon character Betty Boop was inspired by a Black jazz singer in Harlem. Introduced by cartoonist Max Feisner in 1930, the caricature of the jazz age flapper was the first and most famous sex symbol in animation. Betty Boop is best known for her revealing dress, curvaceous figure, and signature vocals, boo-doo-be-doo boop. While there was controversy over the years of the inspiration of her, it has been traced back to Esther Jones, who was known as Baby Esther and performed regularly at the Cotton Club in the 1920s. Now, Baby Esther's trademark vocal style of using boops and other childlike scat sounds attracted the attention of actress Helen Kane during a performance in the 1920s. Now, after seeing Baby Esther, Helen Kane adopted her style and began using boops in her songs as well. Finding fame early on, Helen Kane often included this baby style into her music. Now, when Betty Boop was introduced, Kane promptly sued Feisner and Paramount Publics Corporation, stating that they were using her image and style. However, video evidence came to light of Baby Esther performing in a nightclub, and courts ruled against Helen Kane, yes, baby, stating that she did not have exclusive rights to the booping style or image, and that the style, in fact, predated her. Not you trying to steal and pretend like you created, girl, the nerve and the audacity, the gall, the gumption. So Baby Esther's baby style did little to bring her mainstream fame. She died in relative obscurity, but a piece of her still lives in the iconic character Betty Boop. Now, Daquon, not you fully trying to pretend like you invented something that you knowingly stole.
Like you said, the audacity, the gall, the gumption.
The gumption, the nerve. That's our Drag Race UK right there, a direct quote. Right. I really want to make sure that we bring light to that, because Esther Jones we don't know much about her because of Helen Kane's basically appropriation of her style and her uniqueness. And I think that it's a very big conversation about what we just talked about. And it really harkens back to what we spoke about, because this white woman took this Black woman's character and profited off of it, profited off of a caricature of her. And Esther Jones is basically forgotten in history, but we're not forgetting her today, baby.
That's why we have this segment. Now for mine, graduation is almost here for many of us students. So let's talk about the accomplishments of one amazing Black high school student in Albany, New York. And I found this from Because of Them We Can. So Anovu Otatigbe Dangerfield is a senior at Albany High School in Albany, New York. She's always worked hard academically while also being active in several extracurricular activities. She's the president of the robotics team, president of Key Club, the editor-in-chief of the school's online newspaper. She's also a member of the select choir, a violinist, a pianist in the jazz improv band, and a soccer team member. If that wasn't enough, on the weekend, she volunteers at a local nursing home. The senior is now winding down her high school career with an almost perfect GPA. She's graduating at the top of her class and is now valedictorian, the first African-American valedictorian in the school's 152-year history. The first in 152 years. Just had to say this again. So the teen has already been accepted into a number of colleges, including Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Johns Hopkins, and Georgia Tech. When asked how she was able to accomplish so much, Onovu admits that it was the doubt of others that served as her motivation. Quote, she says, "I think one of the things about me is if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it." Onovu also says that she believes it's nice to be first at something, but it's more important not to be the last.
Baby. Hello, Queen.
Queen, absolute.
You've done it again. Constantly rising the bar. I'm going to say this, Daquon. Black women.
And that's that.
Black women. Like, yes, ma'am, not 152 years. And baby, she is the pick of the litter. The pick of the litter. She's like, I guess I'll figure out where I'll go. I guess I'll grace what
it's not just enough to be president of the robotics team.
Like
any and everything I want to do.
And I love her name too. Like, yes, baby. Yes, that name. Yes, the excellence. Yes, just everything about that. I'm living for all of that. Black women constantly rising the bar. Constantly rising the bar. You have done it again, Queen. Constantly. So as always, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a season, Daquon. Right.
Let us know down below what was your favorite episode of season 2.
Please tell us. And I want to ask you, Daquon, what was your favorite episode? What was your favorite moment in this season?
Ooh, it would either have to be the conversation on mental health or Black men and emotional expression. Those two hold a special place in my heart.
Absolutely. The mental health one got me all the way together. Like, baby, it was the healthy conversation for me. Like, it was the fact that I fully had a whole moment, and that episode really kind of opened my eyes to some stuff. Like, I was just like, whew. Oh my God. I was like, this is something right here. I'm like, oh, not me fully crying. I was like, oh my God. But I mean, this is just always, I mean, Daquon, I can't tell you how much enough that I really fuck with you as a co-host, as a friend. You are that bitch. Like, we are those bitches out here constantly. Like, this show means so much to me. And to be able to have these conversations, to be able to have these discussions, to be able to really be open and honest, to disagree and agree, and to really kind of reach an understanding with each other, that it's just, I mean, we are always taught to keep our opinions to ourselves and keep what we feel to ourselves and keep all of our stuff bottled up, and just be able to let it out in this form, and to be able to, it just feels like a therapy session every time I talk to you, Daquon. Like, it just feels like I'm just living, like I'm living.
Right. Yeah, I echo everything you said. Like, these episodes are like the highlights of my week. It's like, all right, I'm looking forward to Friday because I know we're recording a bomb episode. And then also just like, thank you to anybody and everybody who is watching. Like, honestly, like, it doesn't matter how many comments we get. That one comment that's just like, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to engage in this way. It's like, that's what we do this for.
It makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth. I know it sounds cliche, but it really does. Seeing people comment, seeing people support us, we're like, that makes us feel like we are reaching someone. This conversation was not just validating for us, but it was validating for someone else. And that's why we do this show, honestly. And I have to say, y'all, I mean, there's no words to describe how thankful I am to have been able to do this with Daquon, and how thankful I am that we do have the supporters that we do have on this show. And we will definitely see you all next season. We are definitely going to take a break to regather our energies, to regather and bring you yet another bomb-ass season. Like we always say, do not forget to comment down below. Do not forget to rate and review our podcast on whatever podcasts are available, bitch. This is the Melanin Margin. I'm your host, Quaviondre Williams. You can follow me at Andre Talks a Lot. You can follow Daquon at Daquon950. Baby, this was season 2, and we will see you all next season, baby. Have a good night.